Thank you for staying with us. Our keen focus of this second hour will be on the education sector, given, as per usual, they have received the largest budget when it comes to the 25-26, and we want to look at how this will, of course, inform the transition of not only grade 9 to grade 10, but other developments within the education sector. But before we converse that particular discussion, I want to take you live to the Kenya School of Government, where stakeholders are currently meeting in a dialogue and capacity building workshop on financial investigations and asset recovery. Let's listen in.
Representatives of the different institutions and organizations, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Before I read the speech of the CEO, I was just reflecting on the title for the workshop that we are in today, which is Stakeholder Dialogue and Capacity Building Workshop on Financial Investigations and Asset Recovery. As I reflected on this, I was able to frame about 4 questions. And the first one is, who is a stakeholder? The second one is, what is the role of a stakeholder? And the third one is, why do we need dialogue? And number 4, why capacity building on financial investigations and asset recovery? I will not ask you to answer those questions, but I will try briefly to attempt them. A stakeholder is defined or can be defined as one who is affected or can affect the actions of another. In the context of an organization, when you talk about a stakeholder, you are talking about the people who, sorry? Yeah. Yeah, so in the context of an organization, you look at stakeholders as all the parties, from the employees, from the management, from the shareholders, from the financials, from society and all that. And when you look at what we are doing, you can take actually a country, you can take a continent and the whole world as actually an entity with several stakeholders. And therefore, in the context of what we are doing today, we are saying that all the representatives that introduce themselves today are stakeholders in the context that they can affect the actions of those who engage in financial crimes, illicit flows, because whatever...
That is the Director of Ethics at the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission giving a presentation there in terms of stakeholders meeting at the Kenya School of Government when it comes to dialogue and capacity building workshop on financial investigations and asset recovery. Various investigative bodies as well as judicial are currently attending that particular briefing, where the participants, 60 participants from the judiciary, the National Police Service, as well as the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, DCI, Asset Recovery Agency, the Kenya Revenue Authority, Financial Reporting Center and EACC, as well as the ODPP are currently meeting there. Our very own Adan Ibrahim is following on that particular story and will inform us in our subsequent bulletins. But let's recap on what we'll be discussing this second hour. Our focus is on the education sector, and with the Treasury Cabinet Secretary, that is John Buddy, expected to make a presentation before the Augusta House on Thursday. Education sector has been accorded the largest share of the 2025-2026 budget, where 701.1 billion shillings has been allocated, which will account for 28.1% of the total budget. Now, the keen focus is what the Exchequer is saying, that the significant allocation intends to support school capitation across primary, junior secondary school, TVET and university institutions that will also cater for the remuneration of teachers, instructors and lecturers, as well as the development and expansion of the educational infrastructure. But more importantly, what we want to focus, and my experts, I'll be introducing them in just a few, is the transition of learners from grade 9 to grade 10. Given that the circular was out, there is a schedule that they're supposed to follow, and in terms of selection all the way to the assessment and how they're going to be assessed at the end of the day, and other key sectors that these particular funds will be going to. Let me get to introduce my guest. Let me start on my left. That will be on your right in the screen is none other than Boaz Waruku, an Elimu Bora Working Group representative. Thank you, Boaz, for joining us here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, next to him is Frederick Onyando, an academics master at Loreto Convent. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And now on my right, which is on your left on the screen, if you can see, is Brenda Limo Mushoki. She is the director of King David School, Kamulu. Welcome.
Thank you, viewers. Thank you for having me.
And then finally, Alex Ondara, a career counselor. Welcome.
Thank you, Hashem. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And let me start with you, Boaz. As per usual, the education sector gets the largest share when it comes to budgetary matters. Compared to last year, is it going downwards or is it going upwards?
Thank you, and indeed to our viewers, salute. And thanks for this opportunity to discuss education matters. Secondly, education budget is always the lion's share. That is not in dispute. It's always the lion's share. I can't remember over a year when it was less. It's always taking more and more. I think it is doing so precisely because the needs in education are so numerous, so many. If you are to tabulate right from the early grade, PP1 right now, as you are planning now up to grade 9, and then those who are in high school, TVETs and the universities, you'll realize that the needs of all those levels of education would require a lot more. I think the situation that we find ourselves in is to say whether the allocation reaches the target.
Yes.
And if the allocation has been also done proportionately, being sensitive to the required standards that are there. I do a lot of research in education, and when discussing budget, I normally follow the 4S framework. The 4S framework talks about, one, the size of the entire budget that the government has, and that it is important that we always try to ensure that that budget continues to grow like a mushroom. It becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. So a bigger share is better share. A bigger size is a better size. Is good for everybody in the economy. Then you come to the share. Now in this case, you see, education will always get more because it also depends on a government or a country that wants to progress. So the share that it gets out of that big one is very important. But there's a third S which is very important, the sensitivity with which we look at each and every component within the budget. In education, the sensitivity would mean, are we catered for the special needs, for instance? Are we catered for the needs of the girls who have additional needs beyond just what the boys are? And of course, then there's the last share. There's the last S, which is on the scrutiny. And I think this is where I would be dropping it down and say, if we do not scrutinize how the education budget is utilized, if we do not remit, for example, what needs to be remitted in time, and then follow up to ensure that it is used appropriately, not buying, for instance, this Biro pen at 100 shillings when it should be bought at 10 bob.
Yes.
Then all that we are seeing as a lot of money, the pilfering of that money, that is where then the problem begins. As for now, if I'm to get a little bit a glimpse into what that budget says, our Elimu Bora group, we had budget consultants, financial analysts, and we actually sat and made certain recommendations. Indeed, we submitted a memo when the budget policy statement was produced. That was in January, February, and even we interacted with this budget and submitted still recommendations on what needed to be considered. One thing which is stark clear to me and to us as Elimu Bora is that there are certain budget lines which are put there what I would call budgeted for corruption. Because if you are not so specific as to where that money should go, it remains floating there. And when it remains floating there, no wonder that is when you'll find CS then declaring, I want to support a school with 100 million. Because this float, it is a float. It is just, it's not directly attacked.
Okay.
Look at, I can take you even to the very specifics.
We'll be getting to those specifics. So let me just accord others also an opportunity to open and state their remarks. We'll be going to those specific boards, don't worry.
Thank you
Frederick,
so much.
what do you make of this particular allocation, and how crucial will it be to the vital sectors, especially on the education, on the lower level especially?
Now, as my colleague has rightfully put it, that education deserves the largest share of the budget based on the demands and the needs. We are dealing with the lives of young ones. We are developing careers. We are developing human resource. So I tend to believe that probably could have been better. The allocation would have been better because we are talking about a growing population. And as the population grows, it only demands or requires that the allocation is also proportionate to the growth. So where we find ourselves, I can say, is a little bit unfortunate because most likely we are going to see cuts in budget of allocation in the vote heads of various particulars in the school planning. And probably to some extent what we are going to see is that the cost is going to be passed down to parents. And the parents will be called upon to foot certain bills, probably what part of what the government was footing before will be cascaded down to parents. And as I've said, it's a bit unfortunate. I wish it could have been done better. But again, the policymakers know as to why they have reached that decision with the cuts. We've already heard about the cries coming from the school heads, because even with whatever little they're already getting, they are struggling to make ends meet, also to meet their suppliers and all that. Now going forward, with even a cut, we can see 2025, 2026 going to be a very hectic year on matters academics. And of course, the weight will be borne by the parents, learners. Probably the quality of service will go down a little bit, as we say. And I just hope that key policymakers at the ministry, at the senior government level, see how they can intervene and chip in something more. Because as we speak, we are already talking about instances when even teachers have already issued kind of a strike notice. And if that is to happen, then you can see the kind of weight. The human resource in the teaching career is already overstrained. And if we are still talking about, right now we can still talk about a teacher strike or a national teacher strike, that will be catastrophic.
Brenda,
Yes.
is the money enough?
Thank you so much for having me. Money will not always be enough, let's say that. But we'll work with whatever we have. What I'm happy about the government is that when they came in, they started aligning education sector. You remember they started by putting in place a task force, the presidential task force, which now went back to aligning education in terms of the content the learners are learning in class and cutting down on. You see, some areas were cut down, rationalization was done. So at least I feel as much as it will not be enough, we can start off at that platform, work with whatever we have and move forward. I believe at the long run, things will work out.
Alex?
Thank you, Ashim. I think it's a big thing that we are having a discussion, a political discussion actually on the lives of the nation, which is dependent on the young peoples, especially our children. Mostly knowledge and education, they are seen as a development towards social sustainability, economic growth. We should not be having this kind of discussion whether the money is enough, money is not enough. If there is one area that the nation should at all invest without having to have issues with this education, this is the livelihood of the nation. So what I'm expecting, because these are new reforms, okay, and today I would be guided by the principle that only change is constant. So this is a new principle that is on board. The money, of course, is not enough. There's a lot of things that need to be done. CBC is new. The training of teachers needs to be done. There's a lot of things that needs to be done. So there's a lot of investment that needs to go here. So to be honest, it's not enough.
Yeah. Now, Boaz, let's go to those specificities that you are running to. Start off with, especially in the education sector.
Yes, please.
The Exchequer is saying that these funds are going to across primary, junior, especially JSS,
Yes.
secondary, TVET institution and university institutions. With this kind of funds, given that you said you had experts who scrutinize especially the allocation to the education sector, which sectors are likely going to suffer if they don't get funds?
I think all sectors are likely to suffer, right from the kindergarten to the tertiary universities. I don't know whether I start from the kindergarten going up or I start from the up coming down. Because if you start from the up, the lecturers themselves, you've seen redundancies being declared. They were supposed to be given certain improvements based on the CBS that they signed. Those provisions are not in the budget. And so that tells you that industrial action are likely to be there. That will destabilize our tertiary level. So I'll be tucking up and tucking the down here. When you come now to the early grade, where we expected that the Munavu report, Brenda has mentioned, should have been actioned or implemented, that is not happening. Why? Because the parliament has failed to seize of that report and convert it into a policy that would require. I don't know whether the handicap is from the executive that should have been bringing it there. And so that has not happened. As a Limobora, we've had occasions to interact with the parliamentarians. The first thing they tell you, don't mention that. That is not something we know. So a formal process of including it. Why I'm bringing that is because within that, the recommendation of Munavu, there's supposed to be the comprehensive school process, harmonization of what the counties do as a function. That is at the early grade, that's the ECD, and then the vocational training, and how that also is seamlessly intertwined with the national, the basic education at primary level going up. That is not in harmony. And so when then you look at how administration and accountability aspects will be at play there, the resource, you're not seeing them there. But when you ask, you're tempted to, okay, you can be told that maybe the counties would see how they harmonize, how they seamlessly intervene at that level. But it should not be something which is not predictable. It should be so clear. On the quality and standards, even at that particular level, you saw at least one of those recommendations when the fees for exams was removed out. I think that was one thing that everybody saw, and that has been reinstated. Actually, that is the only thing that has been reinstated. And somehow, it's been reinstated but removed from where the capitation to schools is supposed to be, meaning that then it is cutting back on the capitation to schools. The capitation to schools also is based on statistics of students which are less than the actual learners in school. Now, when you do so, and your arithmetic tells you that if you are to transfer, like it is recommended, 2,200 per child per year, but then you are transferring for less the number of the children, you're definitely not going to meet the needs of all those learners. So we were very specific. We told them, get the facts right, because the facts are not manufactured by anybody. They are in the statistics, the Kenya Bureau of Statistics, just the recently released the demographic surveys and all that. They are all there. So why this less harmony in how those things should be done is a problem. Come to the teachers. You still indicate that you'll be recruiting some 20,000 intern teachers. The courts have told you that recruiting intern teachers is against the law.
Okay.
So why do you continue with a budget that wants to fund things which are outside of the law, when the law is provided for what should be funded? So we say with that, you should be talking of how you recruit teachers on permanent and pensionable, though there's an indication that there will be a recruitment of teachers, a conversion of the interns into permanent and pensionable, but there's no provision allocated for that conversion. So those gaps, you just look at them and you start wondering who was doing this budget and just wondering how it done. I'll go to the infrastructure and tell you there's an allocation of 400 million for school, there's an allocation of, I think, for 400 schools, a budget which is almost 18 billion. But that budget, as it is indicated, the provision for 400 schools, you start wondering, which schools are these? Because they're not specific.
Okay.
Those 400 schools could be any schools. How many schools do we have? Primary school level, we have over 23,000.
Okay.
Secondary school level, we have over 9,000. So how come you're only budgeting for 400 schools? Those are the things that we have raised. Actually, if they are to be very faithful and look at what memoranda we are submitting to them, that would help them to harmonize.
Okay, thank you so much, Boaz. Now let's circle back, Frederick, to what Boaz is raising, to what we're discussing today. It's all about this particular criteria that was issued earlier this year by the Ministry of Education when it comes to the competency-based curriculum, the transition between grade 10 all the way to 12. So in terms of the career pathways, is it addressing the needs of the society as per now?
Well, thank you, Bwana Abdiaziz, for that question. Now, I want to believe you've talked about the transition.
Yes.
Right now, we are at that stage where our learners are being prepared to transit from grade 9 to grade 10 next year. They are expected in senior schools. And that, right now, actually, what junior schools are doing is helping them select and also select their appropriate career paths. That is in the form of pathways. Pathways come alongside with the tracks, and within the tracks, we've got the subject combinations.
Yes.
Now, you've said that recently, actually, the government did a release circular on the same, a formal circular, and prior to that, they also released 2 documents. One on the subject combination in senior school, and the other one was on the categorization of the senior schools in preparation for next year. You asked whether the subject combination or the career pathways actually align to the needs in the job market today. Looking at it, I will say it does. It does, because if you look at the way the government has planned it, along the 3 pathways, with the STEM, then we have the social sciences, then we have arts and sports science. Now, going by the government projection, STEM pathway is projected to produce up to 60%. So learners progressing to senior school are supposed to take up to 60% of STEM students, after which at the end of grade 12, they're expected to have been equipped with necessary skills that can enable them to be the job creators, that can enable them to embark on the world of work, use those skills to produce goods and services that can earn them an income. Alternatively, from grade 12, they can also progress to higher education now in the university. The government, I think, is looking at, we also have a Vision 2030, and we're looking at towards industrialization. So there's understand there's a lot of career opportunities under technical technical studies track. We've got a lot of opportunities under pure sciences track. A lot of opportunities are also there under applied sciences track. But that's not all. We have got the other pathways under, for example, arts and sports. We've got arts as a track, and then we've got the sports and recreation as a track. So government is looking forward to a situation where a learner goes to senior school, maybe specialized, let's say, a gym instructor. By the time they exit in grade 12, they should be well equipped to set up their gym and also help with the management and control of lifestyle diseases by keeping fit, physical fitness. And that's why you find that in senior school, physical education and sports has been made one of the compulsory subjects. So I want to say it must have taken the stakeholders a lot of time. There was due diligence, a lot of research, such that the subject combinations are scaled in such a way that at the end of it all, they are shaping a learner towards being productive in a given economic area or a given sector. So, as we speak right now, there's still a lot, parents are a lot asking on which is the probable subject combination for my child.
Okay.
But now that, because it's wide, that circular, if you go, it's over 500 plus subject combination that was released by the ministry. So looking at it in bulk, it might be a bit confusing. But if you narrow it down to an individual combination, you realize that it points to a particular career line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, Brenda, given that Frederick is talking about the transition is still ongoing, maybe as the experts on the ground, what have you noted so far and what can be improved upon?
Okay, thank you. in every learner. Right now, the current grade 9 learners, let me go back to what is you had asked him about whether their correct placement has been done. If you look at the way the government is going to place these learners in senior school, a learner will be able to choose, for instance, 12 schools.
Yes.
As a pathway that the learner is going to take. In those 12 schools, a learner will be given an option to choose 7 schools of the path that they would want to choose. Remember, all through from grade 1 or PP1 for that matter, we've documented the progress of this learner. And a teacher should be able to tell you at grade 9 level that this learner is supposed to move to this path. When you look at the documentation of assessments all through to grade 9. You give this learner a second option to choose the pathway that they want to choose, 3 schools. So if the first 7 schools, you've given the next 3 schools, and then you've given the third option. So the kind of personnel we are going to send to the country are real professionals who are going to handle matters that they're supposed to handle in the society. So what the government are not looked at, probably they need to bring in the financial bit of the parent, because we'll place a learner in Mangu, for instance, and probably the capability of the parent will not reach there. So I think that is what we should have brought in terms of selection, because when you do selection, it is the school, it is the parent, it is the teacher, it is the learner, all that class of people. So the parent should be able to come out clearly and say, yes, put my learner in Mangu, I'll be able to handle my child in Mangu. Put my learner in this area, and I'll be... So probably that is the bit that we need to look at. But the criterion of selection placement has been run right, according to me. Yeah.
Alex, as a career counselor, as you respond to the same thing, what should teachers and parents alike should be looking out for from these young learners so that they can be better placed where they can flourish at the end of the day?
Thank you, Ashim. I think there is one thing that we must understand and accept is that educational reforms, they are guided by our national goals. Also, what's the national goal of a country? I think if then we are guided by the Vision 2030, which was developed, is that Kenya was supposed to be made the middle manufacturing in a country by the year 2030. So then if that is the case, then the question that you ask is whether do these pathways align into the job market? That's the intention. Collectively, yes. But now, will we be able to achieve that? Because when you look at STEM, at the end of it, what you're looking at, we want to have the entrepreneurs from the STEM pathway. Then when you look at social science and arts, the bottom line is that we want to have a social cohesion, culture, and leadership. That's what we are developing. Then you come back to technical, when we are developing guys for employment. Okay, so the intention is there. But now the question is, are we able to achieve it? Are we able to invest to achieve it? So this new curriculum, the person who is at the center of it all is the learner. There's a difference the way we used to handle the 844 and this one. This one, a learner should be given a chance to choose what he wants. It's about suitability, because what we are developing, we are not developing guys for the white-collar jobs. We are developing these kids to be able to be entrepreneurs, to be able to start their own business. That's why when you look at those, the way the CBC is breaking down, at the end of grade 12, when a learner is transitioning to tertiary education, now there's 3 options in tertiary education. One, we either go to the tertiary education, that's the university colleges. 2, a learner might have found the career that they want there and it drops off and start the career, and a learner will start a business. Okay, so there's 3 ways. One is that if, for example, a learner chose the social sciences, sports and arts, so this learner has really invested in this and he wants to be an athlete. So we will not force this learner to go to the university, because what we are developing here is a person who has the skill to sustain the job market. So the parents should totally allow these learners to be who they are. They should not be commanders. The parents now, it's high time to be they have to be the guide. Are you able to guide your child to choose the right career path?
Okay, we'll come back, we'll circle to this particular conversation, but let me take our viewers live here at the Broadcasting House. The PS for Broadcasting, that is Stephen Isabok, is currently with the Managing Director of KBC, Agnes Kaleche. They're addressing there is the PS. Let's listen in.
Directives, His Excellency the President gave to see that KBC is actually transformed and regains back its glory. And our work is to work with the management team led by the MD here and yourselves and the board to actually ensure that we fulfill that mandate from the president, and actually that we play our role in nation building. Those few remarks, I thank you again and looking forward to working with you as a leadership, and obviously working to fulfill the government programs and policies. Thank you.
At this point, please, I want to present a few gifts for visiting us.
That was a brief meeting between the Principal Secretary at the State Department for Broadcasting, that is Stephen Isaboke. Then you can see the Managing Director, Agnes Kaleche, and of course our very own Timothy Kipnusu will be giving us an update in our subsequent bulletins on what the two figures have been able to discuss on the various issues that are affecting the broadcasting industry, and especially here at the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. Circling back to what we're discussing, if you're just joining us, our focus is on the education sector, and more importantly on the career pathways, given that January 2026 is not that too far, and especially right now when the government is reading its budget on a Thursday. And how crucial will it be to these career pathways? Let me head over to Boaz once more. Boaz, we're talking about a system that is addressing an education system that was there before. The 844 normally that we are brought up with, we normally crammed. Now we have here CBC that is at the end of the day is trying to figure out what these kids are better at. As the Elimu Working Group, what recommendations have you made so far to the ministry, especially when it comes to the career pathways?
Thank you so much. I hope you said crammed on a light note.
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm a product of 844.
Even me.
And
yes.
I say, if we are not also careful, even CBC might become another 844. Because 844 was supposed to replace the 7-4-2-3 system, which was considered to be more theory, and then the cramming aspect, non-practical. But that is not a question you've asked me. I was just responding to that. Now, for me, in terms of then transitioning, before I even go to the pathways and all that, we should be looking at two critical things: the level of preparedness for these learners to transition, and for the institutions that are receiving them to receive them and indeed continue with that. So in economics, people talk of demand and supply, but that would be restraining. So I want us to look at how a situation where then you are talking of these learners are being prepared and they'll be ready, but then when they get to the school, then the horror begins. When they get to grade 10, let's avoid these horrors. I don't want to get into the details of that, because that would be a different conversation altogether. We have documentation on this. Can we just be clear that this is the year we have grade 9, and the preparations for grade 10 should be activated more, effectively, other than by the words of mouth. Why, when I talk about that, I mean the schools which are supposed to receive these learners. When talking about the schools, let's not be just thinking it is the Mangoes, it is the St. Mary's, it is the Alliances, it is no. Let's start with that smallest of the schools in the village. Public education system, that's the anchor where Elimu Bora comes from. Because if those schools are not properly made conducive, so that they can receive those learners, then we'll not really be getting them there. So we require the infrastructure there, we require the teachers there who have also been inducted. Remember, these teachers that they are going to receive, that they are going to encounter in grade 10, have been delivering the curriculum of 844, which you pointed out. Maybe just memory and a lot of that. But this is now the curriculum which requires them to be critical thinkers also. Yeah. You don't also just talk about the practical in terms of just the handwork, but critical thinkers, and psyched in a way that they want to contribute, they want to innovate, they want to think big. And in fact, even as I think it is Alex who was talking about how you prepare them, be ready for the job market. I think you're not preparing them even for the job market. We are preparing them to create the market for them, because these are the jobs that are going to be there. Nobody is even training people for. In the next 10 or 20 years, the kind of jobs that we'll be having requires the dynamite in the minds of these young people. That is the dynamite that you require to activate. So you require then teachers who would be able to understand that in the 21st century, when we are teaching these young ones, the facilitation needs to broaden their scope of thinking and imbibing things. The mind thinks and the hand and other limbs act. So in that case, that is very important. The second aspect is when you are now looking at how they are being prepared, now that's coming back to the learners themselves. I like it that Brenda is so positive. Brenda, because you come from a private institution. But the public schools are dealing with enormous number of learners. You'll find 2 teachers handling JSS as we speak. And indeed, they're handling hundreds of students. The only thing that is happening, because I'm not talking out of blue, I've visited some of those schools, you'll find that the rubric that they're filling, they're filling meet expectations, approaching expectations, and all that. And if you ask if there's a particular child that is being assessed, you know, if you don't fill those, also you are in trouble. So essentially, we've called as a Limubora, we don't just want to moan about what is not working, but we've called as a Limubora that let us prepare grade 10 in such a way that even these learners will have a second chance of deciding or determining which path they want to get. And I want to remove completely this element of affordability. Brenda, don't use that term. When we use that term, we completely throw our constitution out of the window. There's a right to education, and the government has a responsibility to provide. If it is affordability, over 80% of our learners would not be anywhere. So let it not come out that we are talking about those who can afford which schools should be placed. No. That, to us, as a Limubora, we completely are not of that mindset. So we need to help these learners. As of now, I think rationalization of subjects has been going on, and it has been going on for far too long. At some point, KICD should be asked now, because I know that they were ambushed. Let me be very clear. I think they were ambushed when they are being told, rationalize this from so many subjects. We need only 9. We need only 7 and all that. But you see, when they were telling you that we have a challenge, when you're rationalizing, where do you place home science and all that? And then they eventually find home science and agriculture together, you know. And then they're telling there's something that we miss when we are doing this rationalization. And instead of just allowing those subjects to remain as are, but then the learners, now those that really want to pick and choose and say, I want to specialize in agriculture, it is important to allow them also to develop that. Otherwise, you look at the materials that are being prepared, you find that there are certain contents which are missing out or are superficially being handled at that level. So for us, we want them to be prepared so that wameiva kama ile ugali you want to see that is ready. I think when we do so, it will be important. But all this that we are talking verbally, if funds do not follow them, then we'll still be coming back here just to mourn about them. Thank you.
Now, Frederick, we can even pick points from what Boaz was raising, but a keynote that he has just raised in terms of not overlooking, because most of the time when people are selecting, especially students, even us, when we were back then we were told to select schools, people will be rushing to these national schools. Why are we overlooking these county schools where it could even at least address the issue of students, shortages in some schools and others are full to the brim?
Thank you, Bwana Hashim, for that. Allow me to start by agreeing with what my colleagues have said here, Brenda and Alex, that with the CBC, the focus is actually on the learner, and that it's about preparing the learner for future, for stability, to switch and to be a productive member of the society. So I also do want to agree with Bwana Boaz, as he has put it, that with the CBC, it's not about producing somebody who can be employed, but somebody who can be an employer, a job creator. It's true, the market is changing. The learners we're talking about are the people who will be ushered into the job market in the next 5-10 years. But then, of course, things shall have changed. 5 years ago, nobody knew that AI will be the key thing today. Nobody knew that social media would be a source of income for somebody. So with that kind of dynamics, we are instilling in these learners, it's a requirement that CBC instills in the learners the so-called 21st century skills, employability, adaptability, and all that. And that's why if you go by the CBC foundations, the vision is very clear: to produce an empowered, an engaged, and an ethical citizen. So that whatever they find themselves engaged in, whatever the business, whatever the form, line of productivity they are in, they are also guided by the values. That is one thing that CBC brings on the table. Values. It's not where the end justifies the means, but it's where a decision is made based on the soul, having consulted your soul and your spirit. Is it in good taste? How will it affect the other members of the society? Having said that, I also agree that it's right to education is enshrined in our constitution, and that one now brings us also to the issue of to enable us offer equity and equal opportunity for every learner. Then it goes to what level have we equipped our schools, so that we don't talk about that high school there. When Brenda mentioned a learner failing to join a particular school probably because of affordability, it's a reality we are living in. Somebody will be admitted in that high class, we call them cluster 1 nowadays. Somebody will be admitted in cluster 1 school, but due to the cost of maintenance in such a school, they might not join based on the family they're coming from. And that's on the same, I agree with Boaz that it is upon the government to make it achievable, to make that dream achievable by equipping all schools equally. Whatever facilities can be found, let's say at Alliance School, should be found at that sub-county school there. The learner doesn't have to travel miles to access the so-called quality education. Right now, these learners in grade 9, they are selecting 4 schools per subject combination. Cluster 1 being national, cluster 2, extra county, cluster 3 is the county school, and cluster 4 is the sub-county school. So you'll find that, again, selection will also be based on the weight of the assessment criteria. Brenda talked about the NEC, the National Examiner, having accumulated the learner profile in matters of academics. That profile has been there ever since grade 3. Grade 3, they reached grade 6, they did CAPSEA. In junior school, they have been doing school-based assessments in grade 7, in grade 8, and now the final one is waiting them towards the end of the year, Kenya Junior School Education Assessment. The weight of that score will also determine who goes where. And that's why nationally, the government came up with 8 levels of performance. Right now we talk about, it started with 4, right now we are at 8 actual levels of performance. Below expectation, from below expectation 2 to exceeding expectation 1, which is the highest achievement, awarded 8 points. So for somebody to go to that C1 class, C1 school, probably they have to have a performance score of maybe 7 and above. But there will be somebody with 4, with 3 points. This, in line with the Constitution and the rights to education, should not be a barrier. Should not stop any learner from achieving their dream. And that's why CBC, the focus is on that learner. They say in the mission is nurturing every learner's potential. So in a classroom, the focus is not on the class, but on the learner, because the learners are there, each and every one of them is there individually.
Okay.
So they cannot, there's nothing like collective success. You succeed individually, and then collectively, the community, the society succeeds. That learner who will not make it to C1 school or C2 school, that learner who will find themselves getting admitted in C3 or C4 school, they should not see a situation where their government has denied an opportunity in terms of infrastructure, in terms of human resource, and all other supportive services that they require.
Okay.
This is the time for the government to invest in such, to make all schools equal.
Brenda, as you respond,
Yes.
in terms of assessment, what are we looking at, especially for this grade 10 all the way to 12?
Okay. Before I delved into assessment,
Okay.
when we started this conversation, Abdi, we talked about the budget. And we need to face the reality the way it is. Currently, we have 35,000 schools, 570, both public and private schools. And out of that number, about 11,000 are private schools. Why are private schools there? Means there's a gap somewhere that the private schools have come to fill in. So even as we talk about the budget, the financial aspect of the parent, we need to speak about the reality on the ground. That is one thing. So probably the infrastructure in place needs to be looked at deeply, especially when it comes to public schools. Now, assessment. When we move to assessment, for a learner to join senior school, remember we've been documenting their assessment all through, like he has mentioned, from grade 3. Now, for us to place a learner at senior school, there is a mark that the learner did in KPSEA. We are going to pick 20% of that assessment. In grade 7 and grade 8, we are going to pick 10%. That is school-based assessment. It is an exam administered by NEC, marked in schools and posted. The teachers post it in NEC portal. At the end of grade 9, they'll sit a summative assessment that is KPSEA, which will account to 60% of the assessment. So when you pick the 20 in KPSEA, the 10 in grade 7 and 8 plus the 60, that accounts to 100%, right? Now, when a learner is placed in senior school, there are so many categories of things we'll look at. We'll look at the learner, what do you call, what the learner was able to get in KPSEA, that is the merit. We look at the choice of the learner, the pathways that the learners are going to choose. We look at the schools that the learners are going to pick. There are so many aspects that we're going to look at so that we can, and on top of that, by the way, there's an assessment that NEC is going to administer, I think in the course of this month, called a psychometric test, that will guide the NEC clearly that yes, when we are placing a learner in a certain school, we are clear as NEC that we are correctly placing this learner. So they're going to do an online test, which now will also sum up to what will be used to place the learners at senior school. Yes.
And Alex, as we are coming to a close of this particular conversation, the placement, that is what the ministry is saying, will be based on learners' choices, merit, and psychometric tests that will be carried out in various institutions that will be sitting for. You've just heard what Brenda is talking about, the assessment. What should be done right to ensure at the end of the day, when that learner leaves school and heads over, let's say, for example, to TVET institutions or universities, what should be the right way to address what they're missing? In essence, what are some of the gaps within them?
Thank you, Ashim. As we talk about capitation, I don't want to go that route because we may end up losing the discussion, which is the learner. So, what is the best criteria for us to place these learners? Because we all agree that at the end of the day, the main person you are talking about at the center point is the learner. Then, what we should do is the suitability, okay? Because all human beings, we are all wired different. We are all suitable in certain things. The fact that Ashmi, you are good in maths and I am good in social studies, it doesn't make you a better person. What it makes, it complements us. So what then we should do, as career counselor, what we look at least 5 areas. One is the personality of the person, okay? Because people think different, people feel different, people see things different. So what's the runner's personality, okay? Then what interests the runner? Where is the runner interested in? Then what motivates the runner? Because we are all motivated different. Maybe I am motivated in things to do with social services, in adventure, in continuous learning. Then how does this runner run? Because we have at least 4 or 5 areas of running. There's those who run by seeing, visual runners. There's those who run by kinesthetic, hands-on. There's those who run by just hearing. So how does this runner run? Then now, after combining all those things, then we do what we call correlation analysis. I think now when that psychometric comes out, I prefer to call it a career assessment rather than psycho. Then now we look at, after doing all the correlation, this kind of correlation analysis, are we able now to identify this person's strength? Where is it? Because we are looking for suitability. It's not about what society wants. It's not about what the teacher wants. It's not about what the school wants to place their runners. It's about where this runner is suitable in. So CBC, if we look at it from a top-down model in a way that, first of all, identify the career of where this runner wants to go. Okay, let's first of all identify the destination, then come back and work towards the destination of that learner, so that now, in a way that now we are able to give this learner a broad range to choose from. It's the learner to make a decision, and this is what I want to do, okay? Then can we able to guide this learner to make a decision? So it's about looking at all these areas, from their personality, career interests, career motivators, and then deciding on which is the best career cluster and pathway to put this learner. Yeah.
Okay, given that now we're in the final leg, let me start with you, Boaz. I give you a minute at least to make your final remarks. I'll give you a minute each. Let me start with you, Boaz.
Thank you. It's been a good conversation. A few things I need to clarify. One, it should not emerge that Elimobora is anti-private schools. Elimobora is for an effective and working public education system. And they coexist, of course, with private schools. And those private schools should be there as a matter of choice, not that they are the only ones. That is why we advocate that where there are no public schools, they should be established. The second thing is also on the focus on the learner. And I want to remind us all, the reason why TSC does not allow anybody who has not been trained as a teacher to appear in front of a class is because the teacher training at the colleges and the universities enables these teachers to focus on the learner. And that is the focus of the teacher training. Anybody who has not been trained there appearing in front of a classroom or a group of children is a cheater, is not a teacher. And so I think I needed to bring that out. And thirdly, the aspect of what we as a Elimobora are calling for, which are things which can be done, is making each and every school a center of excellence for all this learning. I think I like the way Fred put it across. Why? Because not all those learners would be able to go to other corners of this world. Actually, I wish they could, the way Nyerere did in Tanzania.
Yes.
You pass, you are given a voucher, you can take, the buses are there, can take you to any corner of the country, and you are not asked, because that would also allow for integration, cohesion, and all. But in our reality, the only thing we must do then is to ensure that all those corners have schools.
Okay.
That even if you come to Nairobi, you'd find the same school and the facilities and all. We call them the holistic school approach.
Okay.
That you'd always be having them with the standard infrastructure, teacher quality, environment, in such a way that no child is left behind, no child is feeling like I'm being given the short end of the stick because I'm interacting with things like in the sciences much later. So for us, I think we are saying there's a conversation that Kenyans need to have.
Okay.
And the Kenyans need to have and look at it, even if it is from the budget, they need to say, we still require a lot more resources in education. We are not saying that because it has 701 billion allocated this year, that is enough. But we also need to seal those loopholes, which make us lose a lot of the resources. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Boaz. Oh, sorry, Frederick, quickly.
Thank you, Bwana Abu. Once again, I'm grateful for this opportunity, and this was a very meaningful discussion. I hope wherever this gets to us, from whichever corners of the country, that we take this exercise very, very seriously. It is critical that we are handling a transition stage, and it is critical and important that we get it right. So two things come in hand. One is to ensure every learner gets that which is due to them, their rightful place in education, without having to struggle for it. So I still call upon the key stakeholders, particularly the educators, nowadays called facilitators. The way Madam Brenda said, that we happen to know these people, we've been with them for longer, we happen to know them better. Let us give a good advice, a good counsel to the parents and the learners in matters choices. When Alex said it should not be about the parents' push or the family push or any other pressure. It's about the learner and their suitability. What can they make them realize their full potential? And the government is committed to that. So let us handle this exercise with care, with utmost faith, and we help the government realize this intention. Secondly, the way Bwana Boaz has put it, my appeal is still that we spend on funding and equipping our schools. Let us fund and equip our schools so that everybody gets equal chance. It is true, she said it, private sector things are way better. In public, there's still a way to go. Okay. Yeah, some good work is going on, but there's still a way to go. There's a lot that needs to be done there. So let us reach a point. I'm looking forward to a point when it doesn't matter whether you undertook your education in a private institution or a public institution, because you have equal opportunity.
Okay.
Otherwise, on matters CBC, those who are still in doubt, matters CBC, this is a train that has left the station. Okay. We are picking our passengers on the way, and it's our faith that every passenger who are our learners arrive at their destinations safely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Brenda, quickly.
Yes, Abdi. Firstly, I would say let us take all the stakeholders in this sector and involve them. Let us involve the children. They are still minors, they need guidance. Let us involve the parents, let them understand what is happening. Let us involve the teachers that are handling these learners. Let us do the retooling of teachers so that as we move forward, we know they are aware of what is happening. Secondly, let us avoid the confusion. Everybody who wants to make content. I heard the other day that now CBC has changed to CBE. Nothing has changed. It is the confusion of content creators outside there. Let us keep the eye on the focus and let's deliver education to the learners.
Thank you so much. Alex, quickly.
Thank you, Hashim. In 1 minute, maybe 4 things. One, let's stop politicking on the lives of the children in any way. It's unacceptable and it should not be happening. 2, these learners are making one of their decisions in life. They are deciding on their life. So to the parents, don't be commanders, just guide them. Then to the children, kindly let's allow them to discover themselves. Because from the bottom of my heart, I believe that CBC is one of the best curriculum. If at all it's well implemented and there's good intention. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate it.
When you hear that sound, they're kicking us out of the studio. Alex Odare, Career Counselor, Brenda Limo Mushoki, the Director of King David School in Kamulu, Boaz Wakuru, a representative of the Elimu Bora Working Group, and then Frederick Onyandwi, Academics Master at Loreto Convent. Gentlemen and lady, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And of course, it's already in the afternoon, and joining us in just a few, so don't go too far, is Kasichana Masha up next with Kurunzi Mashinani. For now, good morning.
Haongeleshi mtu yoyote. Jaribu kumwongelesha. She might open up to you.